Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal, who is also an author whose books are available on Amazon. Check him out, Edward Carbajal on Amazon. Check out his books and buy them. Ed, it's hot here on the West Coast. It's cold on the East Coast. How you doing, my friend?
I'm alive, trying to live life, man. That's it. Just trying to make the most of the time that I got. Hustling like crazy. Spectation Sports picking up a lot of steam. I know we talk about a lot of like options out there, more options, fight fans not having enough or having different ones. And I mean, if you guys aren't paying attention, it's not just because I work for them, but we were getting more and more promoters and events under that banner. There's rumors about Fight Pass being in trouble, and I'm really glad to be kind of like a boots on the ground guy with that streaming service, because we seem to be, I've been pretty busy. That's why we didn't record last week. I'm literally chasing interviews now. We almost didn't record tonight if the guy didn't get back to me literally as soon as I hit record, because he just did for an event that we got going on. But yeah, we got stuff going on. The Ignite Fights 111's going on there. So the link's in the bottom if you want to check out Spectation Sports. It's worth your time if you are a true fight fan and a fan of the mixed martial arts.
Speaking of the mixed martial arts, our talent's getting mixed up a little bit now between a couple organizations. Although it's some old talent, MVP MMA, MVP Netflix MMA, Jake Paul Productions. I'm not really sure exactly who this all falls under and who's fitting the bill for everything. But unless you've been under a rock, obviously a couple weeks ago, everybody saw the Gina Carano, Ronda Rousey fight announced, which kind of shook the foundation of the fight world a little bit, at least for a nostalgic reason, or a kind of about time maybe reason as well.
Yeah.
For all the times we've heard that fight rumored over the last 15 years or so, or Gina coming back and then Ronda over the last 10, 12 years. And then we see they add Ngannou. Now, obviously, they announced he's fighting Felipe Lins, who's not necessarily a heavyweight per se, more of a light heavyweight, but he was on a 4-fight win streak when the UFC let him go. Has some fights in Bellator. Has been under the spotlight in some fights, never to this extent, but it's a living opponent who's got a decent record that will at least go in there and try to win. Maybe be a Seth Petrozelli in 2026 , but
yeah,
you never know.
It was an I obviously they wanted Ngannou on there just because of the name and his availability. PFL was very public about his departure from them, and then this happened almost immediately after, the following week, I want to say. So that they needed somebody. Lins is not a slouch. He's held a title with that organization too. So, I guess that's sellable. But then yesterday they threw in Nate Diaz versus Mike Perry, which is, if I were to say, of all the fights on there that were the biggest coin toss, that's close to a coin toss that could go either way, it would be that one, because of just the guys are kind of mentally cut from the same cloth. Their the way that they fight. I just wrote something about it that I'll be sharing tomorrow of kind of like the way I view the fight. But I saw like the guys at MMA Junkie, Nolan and the guys there kind of did their early predictions, and I was kind of like surprised at some of them. But I think it depends on your age. Like you and I are probably on the same page of who could win this, but I don't know. Maybe you're not. I'm just wondering what's your reaction to it's three fights, and they're 5-minute rounds, all three of them. So I don't know if they're going to add anything else to this, but
I mean, right now for 3 headliners, it's cool. It's what they're doing. They're stacking names. They're stacking names of guys who have had issues, guys and women that have had issues with the UFC. So it's kind of a stand. You're making your first stand, kind of, in an attempt to make a footprint in the MMA world, which hasn't worked well for many people who have gone up against the UFC, and they're vocally trying it. As far as the fights go, you got Ronda. So far, we got Ronda and we got Gina Carano. It's a nostalgic fight. It's fun. I'm honestly glad to see it. I lean. I mean, if we're just doing quick little leanings right now, I lean Ronda clearly in that fight. I think she's fought more recently. Her style is going to set up a chance for her to get a takedown or a flying armbar. I mean, there's a lot of options when the other person you're fighting is not a submission fighter initially and really hasn't done any fighting in the last 17 years. So I don't think she went from like blue belt to brown belt in the last little bit. Let's just put it that way. Now, for some reason, Ronda can't get a takedown, which she wasn't ever really great at. It was usually kind of the headlock throws that she would use against women that weren't able to defend it. If Gina's able to do that and kind of stand strong, obviously 17 years ago, she stood strong for a handful of times against Cyborg, but eventually, was taken down in that fight as well. Ngannou, I think, wins. I think he wins quick. But I don't think Lynn's just gives up. I think he goes out there and makes an attempt to at least try to fight and put up an effort. The fight that's got me interested right now is Perry and Diaz. I mean, it's got me on the brink of buying tickets for the event, actually. You look at the names right now, and I mean, maybe I'm being a little bit hyperbolic with it, but if you said, hey, you can make any 10 fights right now in MMA, would a lot of people, would that fall into one of those? I mean, Diaz versus Perry is kind of a dream fight for the Just Bleed, BMF, bare knuckle, boxing, just kind of down to scrap fight, right? I mean, to me, it's a kind of a great fight. Like I'm like,
it's the fight that usually when an announcement comes out like that, and I write, it inspires me to write a breakdown, so early ahead of time of it, especially with two guys like Perry and Diaz. They're it's almost like I said, they kind of have the same attitude as far as their personalities, and and by that I mean, I don't mean like the whole the street talking shit or whatever. I mean like they're ready to throw down once a fight is going. I mean, I saw some clips of Perry talking to Helwani today, and I could see he's already mentally getting prepared. I mean, they were very friendly with each other, cordial at a DBX event most recently, but both those guys are definitely the type of guy that when they know they've signed a contract to fight somebody, there's not going to be any, they're going to come to fight, and they're both going to show up to win. And they both have the switch that they turn on, where they make themselves hate their opponent almost, because they're so, like, when I say old school, I mean like they're old school, like they're looking at each other like it's an actual beef, that they're going to create beef in their mind just so they can come at each other as hard as they can. That's why I like the fight. I think that's what makes it entertaining, and I actually they probably like it too, because they're fighting first, and then there's a co-main event and then the main event. I mean, they get to go first, so that's a great opener if you're going to get people to dial in, to turn on the event from beginning and stay till the end, as long as they don't screw it up, like if they don't produce it like a boxing event with the interviews and all the bullshit in between. You can string those 3 fights along and have a high viewership is opening with a fight with two guys that are ready to throw down like that. Like, people talk about boring fights, you're not going to get one, because these guys they come to fight, they come to bleed, regardless of who you think is going to win. And I like it a lot, man. It is, like you said. If it's funny that you said that, because I meant to ask you that off air, if you were going to go, and you kind of just said you're looking for tickets already.
The reason why I'm not going for sure is I'm in Vegas the night before for the No Doubt at the Sphere. So it would be driving back from Vegas and going straight to LA to watch that event. So after a long night in Vegas, so it's pushing my 47-year-old mind and body to see if I can grind through that. So yeah, this now you see.
I mean, the Sphere is yeah.
Well, I'm going to that for sure. That's happening.
Yeah.
That's locked in. having not been there yet, I'm super excited, and I'm also looking forward to the No Doubt reunion. You know, nostalgic to my high school, not so much what I listened to back then, but still some nostalgia. Yeah, I mean, so we're all okay. Now you mentioned the 5 minute rounds, and I never really thought of this. Are there going to be more main card fights?
No, that's why I'm saying. Like, I don't think they're going to add anymore because if all three are 5 minute rounds, you look on Typology, that's what it says anyway. And when they made the press release for all of these, mentioned the same amount. So that's why I'm kind of like, I don't think they're going to add any more. If they do, maybe add one more. It would have to be something significant, you know.
See, I'm going to argue something right now that we haven't had in a long time in MMA. I'm saying they need 2 or 3 swing bouts that take place after the main event if they're not needed. But if you're going to put on a 2 to 3 hour broadcast with a potential for 3 fights that can all potentially end in like the first couple minutes, you're opening yourself up for a win, like stretching either having a show that's 45-minute main card or the gaps that we worry about. And I think back, when Strikeforce did it in Tennessee, when they had their in Nashville, where they had the classic riot, that was 3 5, and those all went to decision, and it overran time, and it was kind of an ugly, boring event. I'm worried about this one being the other way. I mean, realistically, Lindsay, I'd pretty much bet my house Lindsay Ngannou doesn't go past the first round. I'd pretty much bet my house that Ronda and Gina doesn't go past the first round. You might get 5 rounds out of Perry and Diaz, or you might get a fight cut stoppage 90 seconds into the fight too. I mean, or somebody get knocked out. So I'd have swing bouts. I'd have some. I'd have probably some name fighters who are kind of on your prelims. Maybe you have like 8 to 10 prelims, but you hold back 2 or 3 of those, and they sit there. And yes, it's inconvenient for the fighter. It's terrible for the fighters. Having had friends who were in swing bouts and stuff and had to sit there not knowing when they were necessarily going to fight and like get warming up multiple times during the event. But I think it's not a bad idea. I think you open yourself that way. You eliminate those huge gaps, and you throw that out of the way, because if otherwise it scares me a little. It scares me now. I'm thinking about going to it, where all of a sudden I can see a quick they open with Ngannou knocks somebody out, and I got a 45 to an hour wait for a potential 90-second fight.
No, and the thing is, like when you look at, because the MVP is a promoter, but Netflix is airing it, so you're gonna have some Netflix producer that probably doesn't really know the fight game. I mean, that's probably why we see these long, like again, they can't handle it like they handle, the boxing events with the several interviews and all the stuff in between. That's what fans don't like. Fight fans want to see fights, and for a card like this, I think that's what you're saying is probably the right move. Shout out to Joseph giving us props. Best show on YouTube. That's my old boss from Front Proof Media, Joseph Correa. I mean, talking about boxing and great photos, check out Front Proof Media, because I know he still shoots a lot of stuff, and he's worked with MVP as well. So, but as far as what you just said, man, somebody said, I forget, somebody was suggesting fights for before they announced Diaz and Perry, and I said they probably don't even know who that is, and a lot of people seem to like that, because again, when it comes to Hollywood minded people trying to capitalize on stuff, they don't really, they're not really tapping on the veins of fight fans like you just said. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I would do that. I don't know. And then the other thing, like so the UFC is really not going to be afraid of this one-off fight. Yeah. That's not really going to do anything.
Yeah.
If I were running the show, and maybe I'm not Jake Paul, I would have announced Diaz and Perry for my second event. I would have, before I even have my first show, I would already let the UFC know that come April, middle of April, right around their pay-per-view, I got Perry and Diaz going. Yeah. And then I had to maybe announce the main event for that one, and maybe that one's whoever you want to line up for Ngannou. Maybe you
Well,
bring in Eddie Hall, or you bring in some other one of the big dudes from Octagon or KSW or something, and you put him in the co-main event. You kind of set up a Ngannou. Then you have your third main event is Ngannou, essentially, assuming he beats Lins versus the winner of that other fight, and then you could kind of keep a rotation going with just Ngannou and Diaz. That could have been easily a couple more headliners. So I understand you got to kind of stack this first one to get a name out there.
Yeah.
But I would have liked, and they might do it. I mean, you could announce Mokaya versus Mighty Mouse. You could announce Fedor versus.
Well, Mighty Mouse is pretty adamant about he's not fighting anymore. But
okay.
But like you said, that
money talks, bro. Jake Paul, money can talk. They need a headliner, and they offer that dude $5.
I don't know. He seems pretty because he's kind of been every time somebody says stuff like that. He's put his own videos out saying that he's pretty much tired of it, which I don't blame him. Mighty Mouse fought for a long time, but Antoine talking about the UFC White House card, I'm glad he brought that up because I don't know why people act like these two events are going on at the same time. Like we're gonna watch them both. One is in May and one is in
they're
June.
2 months apart.
Yeah,
it's like comparing Fight Week to the card at the end of November for New York. So listen, again, as far as comparison goes, I don't get that at all. They're going to compare the numbers, but Netflix is going to get better numbers than Paramount. That's going to happen 100%. Listen, my beef with the card is the same beef I've been complaining about vocally probably since day one of this podcast, and it never has gotten better. The UFC talks so much.
Oh yeah.
They've had, we've talked about this. We've mentioned this White House card for 8-9 months now, at least. It feels like it's been at least maybe a year since they announced something like this might happen. I mean, it's been forever, it seems like. And they literally made the fight the day of the announcement. I mean, these people think about all their big events. The 300 at the Sphere, or 300, the Sphere event. All of them are last minute thrown together fights. That are literally feel like they're put together 2 or 3 days, just right before the show. I know this one's, right before the announcement, but it's like, I don't understand. How can you, and I understand you got injuries or you can't decide who your champions necessarily are, but my God, it seems like with the hype, it's not going to be the best UFC card this year. So right off the bat, it's nothing. Now listen, the spectacle is going to be probably crazy to see. I don't have any issue with them having the event. During wartime or quote unquote wartime, probably not the best idea. I know that's been floated around a little bit, and I'm not going to get into why or why not, but I just don't know if that's the best idea to be having a spectacle at the White House with that going on. For me, it's the frustration as a fan of knowing what they're charging for tickets for their other events and knowing that it's literally just throwing names up against the wall 10 minutes before you put tickets on sale. You think about it. They're hungry for main events. MVP's got Gina Carano, Ronda Rousey, Nate Diaz, Mike Perry, and Ngannou fighting. All of those guys could have fought in the UFC this year. All those guys and girls would have all those names alone right there could have been friggin' 6 headliners. With all these Apex cards and all this other stuff. Mike Perry headlines 19 Apex cards in a row if they wanted to. It's like, it's weird to me that you have this talent out that the fans want to see. Now some of them are washed. I get that, but that doesn't mean the fans won't pay to see them. We just watched Josh Emmett last weekend at 41 get squashed. It wasn't that long ago we saw Nick Diaz in the ring, taking one from Robbie Lawler. It's weird to me that these names are out there and a company worth they're 10 billion now won't sign these guys. I think that's what tells you the most. So to me, that's kind of exposing at least. Listen, the reality is the UFC is no longer about who the best fighter in the world is. Oh yeah, but it was for a small portion of time. And it's faded so far to the side now that that's really not what it is.
Well,
It's
no,
not.
well, you
It's
look at who owns them. I mean, look at the TKO. I mean, it's the UFC and the WWW Pro Wrestling. It's the same
yeah.
thing.
Wow.
Like I always quote that CM Punk quote when he the short time he was with AEW before he went back there. You know, he even said, he's like, there's pro wrestling fans, there's WWE fans. Pro wrestling fans like to watch the wrestlers, and there's people that just like the brand, and the brand of the UFC unfortunately has hive minded the most of people that are interested in this kind of combat sport. I mean, there's people that actually call MMA UFC and not vice versa, like the way you and I, grew up or were brought into the fold. So it's just a different time, and it's part of the reason why, like, people were knocking the way Oliveira won talking about BMF. I wrote about that too on my newsletter, but like that's an option in MMA to win that way. That's what makes it so great. There's more ways to win than just knocking somebody out. A martial artist imposes their art on their opponent, and that's what Oliveira did to Holloway. And that's why guys like you and I love watching this thing. Yes, the knockouts are amazing and great and shocking and all of that, but when you see somebody just really good at what the fuck they do their thing, it's
I
also,
mean,
yeah.
I said it leading up to that fight. Like, point to the ground, take him down the ground, show him
Mm-hmm.
what's up. Listen, we all love Max Holloway. I think that fight was a perfect example of how you can create mega stars.
Mm-hmm.
You avoid certain fighters. If Holloway was a fighter the UFC didn't like, he'd have him rematching Oliveira next week. And then
Yeah.
Oliveira would do it again to him, and then all of a sudden you would never hear from Holloway again. They could have given Holloway that fight 6 years ago, and the same thing would have happened. Holloway would have never been the BMF against Gage. It just goes to show certain guys in the UFC have had certain paths that have been really favorable for their style. And I get it. Holloway's marketable as hell. He's fun. He's fun to hear talk.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, I watch him play video games. He's funny. But and I like the guy. Don't get me wrong. Dude's a fucking soldier warrior out there. But it also goes to show that, the matchups can make a big difference. And if the UFC wants to put you up against 3 world-class grapplers in a row, Max Holloway might not walk out of there, with a win. That's not disrespect. It's just, he's never been forced really in his career to ever have to go down to the ground and fight any of these guys.
Yeah.
Since he became a name early on, that was different. Before he was who he was, he was fighting, all the up and comers as well. But
it's funny because, I mean, what you just said, I mean, Colby Covington apparently did some podcast where he's making the rounds. He's saying the same thing. If once you go against what the UFC wants you to do, they freeze you into non-existence or whatever. That's literally going around before when we started hitting record. So if you haven't seen it, you'll see it when you jump on social.
I mean,
after.
Colby got old, but he's kind of, and I'm not saying he didn't want those fights, but the Usmans, the Leon Edwards, the guys who could strike and had good takedown defenses were obviously his kryptonite. At any point during there, they could have thrown him in there with a Masvidal again, and he could have picked up another ragdoll win. But you get it. It's, and I'm not, and again, I'm all about the best fighter in the world. So if you can't beat those guys, then, Covington can move on, or he can just say, hey, I'll go fight on the prelims against nobodies. That's fine. And I'm okay with that too. But you can't always be, hey, I want a main event, and then complain about going up against stylistic matchups that are bad for you. But the UFC, on the other hand, if they want to help a fighter, they can really help a fighter. If they want to bury you and make sure that you have the worst matchups over and over again, it'd be like Bo Nickel. They just didn't go in and give him another Renier de Ridder immediately. They're not just, I mean, who's he fighting? Cal Dawkins?
Yeah.
I mean, there you go. They want Bo Nickel to be successful.
Yeah.
If they didn't like Bo Nickel, he'd be fighting Usman.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there it is.
Yeah, and I know Usman was teasing him and Connor. I mean, I don't know, honestly, after they announced the card, like you said, we've been talking about that card forever, and all the names that were being thrown at us and flashed at us. I mean, to have what they put out again, I don't mind the card. Justin Gaethje and Topuria are, You know me, Justin Gaethje. I actually put that on Twitter. You put Justin Gaethje, I'm sold. That's good enough for me. But you know, we thought we were going to get this mega card. So my only thinking is because of, and Damon Martin put this out over at MMA Fighting. There were a lot of fighters that were interviewed more so because of the security involved with being on that parcel of land. So that I get, because I mean, let's be honest, a lot of those names you think about it, Conor McGregor, John, a lot of those names aren't you know, you do a background check on those guys, you're going to find a lot of dirt, you know, with the Daniel Kinahan connections with McGregor and you know, John Jones's very public record, and so that I get. So, but I would imagine we would see names like that, not John Jones, obviously, with the way Dana White's been talking about him, but like if Conor comes back, I mean, I saw Usman tweeting about him and Conor for a minute. You know, International Fight Week is not long after that 250 Freedom 250 card, so you know, maybe they're saving something for International Fight Week. But you know, we're in the first quarter. We're about to get to the end of the first quarter of the year, and you know, as much as I like Paramount Plus, UFC on Paramount, number one because it's not ESPN, but I know a lot of people are hating on the UFC. But so far, I like the accessibility of, especially with my ass falling asleep during co-main events lately. I like the accessibility of waking up and grabbing my coffee and being able to be like, okay, let me just watch that last fight like I never saw it. You know.
No, there's some truth to that. I don't have any issue with that. I believe they're having issues with the replays. I don't think that I know Caposa was mentioning something about not having full replays. And
no, and he's right about that. Some people, if you didn't see anything, you want to sit through it, like the way we watch Ryzen when it's over. You know what I mean? So
I also wonder when they're going to get the SCG stuff in there, because I don't really think any of that's listed on. I don't think any of their 90s fight MMA is on there. So I don't know. I wonder. I mean, I know they own the rights, but I just wonder if there's a hang up there between Fight Pass or something.
Probably.
And you know, when you start talking all these streaming companies, because it being maybe a asset as opposed to it actually being, you know, Zuffa or TKO. Yeah, I mean, I think the moral of this, you know, podcast is that looking forward to seeing where TKO is going to go with this, and hopefully they keep it going. I mean, we need the competition. I think that's
really, MVP
TKO. God dang, yeah, well, TKO.
All these letters,
you know, because I know they're having issues with pro wrestling. I mean, I didn't get out to MMA this weekend. I went to the Barboza Sims Jr. boxing on Saturday, and then I went to AEW Revolution pay-per-view on Sunday. So
is that the one Ronda showed up to?
Yes. So Ronda did show up there too. So that's to add, you know, that's the other thing. Like, she's going all in on going all against TKO. Yeah. She's showing up at their rivals on you know, and all that stuff. So interesting to see if she actually competes there. I don't know if it's to promote the fight, because there's no reason for Tony Khan to use that outlet to promote Netflix. It's against everything that they would have as a company. So even when the wrestler MJF was in Happy Gilmore, they didn't mention it because it was a Netflix thing. So it's one of those things where I don't know if they're going to use it really as a heavy springboard for that. But you know, but talk about the two different pacings. Pro wrestling pacing and boxing pacing. Like, I got like 6 matches in between the times that I just saw, you know, between the, you know, girls shooting free t-shirts into the crowd at the boxing match, you know, for 45 minutes in between fights. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I don't like Ronda as the face pushing forward with this. I don't think she's going to do a good. I don't think she does a proper job of kind of stating her stance, and she certainly doesn't represent the average person, I wouldn't say. I think she kind of separated herself from that with a bunch of her comments and stuff over the years. But I am rooting for them to do well, and like I said, leaning towards tickets. I'm kind of curious to see now, though, after we discussed it on this podcast about the, you know, how many fights they're going to add and what else is going to be on here, and you know, before I maybe jump the gun and pull that journey.
Well, yeah, it's three 5 minute 5 round fights. If they add something, it's got to be a 3, like you said, it's got to be a swing bout. It's got to be like 3 round. It's got to be maybe 2 more if they wanted to add 2 more, to kind of fill the time because the chances are 2 of these 3 fights, because the Diaz Perry one that could go, I think that could go all 5. But as far as Ngannou, you got 2 guys with 2 heavy hands. Somebody's going to get knocked out probably fairly early, and then if I don't know how much ring rust Carano is. I mean, it's
I think
a lot.
either way, that fight's a quick fight. Either somehow Rousey gets tuned up with punches or chin shows, or she throws out a quick submission. I don't see that one going much past 3.5, 4 minutes.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't think we're going to get a cardio machine necessarily out of either of them. I mean, more likely Rousey than Carano, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, obviously, 5-round fights. I didn't know why it had to be 5. I mean, I guess for the billing and stuff. But,
yeah.
I don't know. Interesting how that's going, but all right. Well, we'll talk more as this approaches, and anything that and breaking news, we'll obviously try to jump on here for stuff. Otherwise, it's mainly going to be targeting the big UFC pay-per-views, and obviously now the MVP pay-per-view coming up in May. Fans can follow the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast to Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. And buy his book on Amazon, author Edward Carbajal. Search it in the search bar and buy his books. Thank you for listening. Thank you for commenting. The link is below for the books and everything else that we've spoken about. Have a good night and be safe, everyone.
Peace.